Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for having me. Oh, that was such a wonderful introduction, Rebecca. Thank you so much. So now I'm going to ask if we can start the slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so happy May Day, everyone. And thank you again for having me here. Next slide. Yeah, so before I start my presentation, I want to start off with this picture because it means so much to us as workers, as nannies in the field. The work we do is very valuable. And this is a photo of two beautiful children who are now grown. They are over 4 years old. And it was such a love to be a part of their upbringing, to be a part of their milestone, and to help and coordinate with all of the families through the work that I do as a cooperative owner, worker owner. So thank you so much for listening in on this part. Next slide. Yeah, so today our agenda, I'm going to give you a brief history of Carroll Gardens Association, we call CGA. What is a co-op? Why co-op? How a co-op is important to the solidarity economy. We'll talk a bit about Hopewell Care, Childcare Cooperative. I'll give you a little overview. We're going to talk a little about the challenges we face, which I think is very appropriate for this time as we celebrate Labor Day or National Workers' Day or International Workers' Day. Anyhow you want to put it, May Day, Labor Day. Either way, it's awesome. And we also will talk about a support and ally that help us fight for rights and justice and help create better working conditions for us. And finally, we'll talk about Advocacy Council a little more. And that's New York City Network of Worker Cooperative. That's what the NYCNOWC is for. And we'll tell you a little bit about who we are, like Rebecca mentioned early on, and we'll talk about the campaign we support, and then we'll have your input with questions and answers and comments. Next, please. Awesome. So Carroll Gardens Association is a little office located on 201 Columbia Street, but there's so many things that they do for a community. So they serve the community for the past 50 years. They are a member that supports tenant organizing and affordable housing. There is another branch, that's where I came in, and many of my fellow colleagues, domestic worker organizing and cooperative economics, public bank, New York City, we support that coalition, and worker cooperative development. Carroll Garden has been the incubator for Hopewell Care, Childcare Cooperative, and Brightly Carroll Gardens. And this little logo here to your right of your screen, nice blue with a little star, that's the Brightly logo. Next slide. Yeah, so we're going to dive deeper into what is a cooperative. I'm going to try to be as simple as possible, but yet I've noticed that most of you on the call are very familiar with aspects of it. So it might just be a refresher. Cooperatives is a business. It has share ownership, and I heard some of the answers. There were people that mentioned that. And it operates according to a set of principles. And there's 7 principles, which we'll go into the penultimate slide. Next slide. So another definition to use as cooperative could be an autonomous association of persons united voluntarily to meet a common economic and social cultural need, an aspiration to a jointly owned, democratically controlled enterprise. And that's a quote from International Cooperative Alliance. So it's formed to meet members' need. Someone did mention that too. It's owned and controlled by the members. And it's a common value, all members has common value and commitment. So we don't have any bosses. We are our own bosses. And when we go out to work, we put all of our efforts into it. Next slide. Yeah, so the 7 core principles are voluntary and open membership, democratic membership control, member economic participation, autonomy and independence, education, training, and information, love that, and cooperation among cooperatives. So we interconnect and we share spaces, we share similar values, we learn about each other, and we try to support each other, as we will discuss later when we talk of solidarity economy and concern for community. Next slide. Yeah, I love this one. So people may ask, why cooperative? I know it's a little technical, but here we have a little Jamboard that was created, that's nice little sticky notes. Like you make a sticky notes, the only thing you do it on your computer and you gather it. So on this Jamboard, there's so many beautiful thoughts coming from participants who attend different sessions and seminars and info session. So I'll just highlight a few. One of them is democracy at work on a daily basis, co-op power and ownership, by us, for us, co-op are better to grow a city than Hudson Yards. Oh, I love that person. Empowering communities. Yeah, and that's also in Spanish. To lift standard in industry that are exploitive. That is very deep. Sustainability, self-determination. I have a voice and a say in my workplace. And the list could go on and on and on. And we're not going to go through all of that because of the interest of time, but that's just to tell you all of these points here incorporate why worker co-op is good for the economy. Next slide. Yeah, so here we are talking, oh, there's so much on this page. This is so deep. So the solidarity economy, it could be seen in many different ways. We have production, exchange and transfer, consumption and use, and surplus allocation. And it's a whole collective intersectional, intertwining. You can relate it in so many, it's a web, it's a beautiful web. And I just want to take a moment to go through each aspect on this slide because it's so important. When we talk of production, what are we thinking about? We're thinking about producers, cooperative. We're thinking about democratic employee stock ownership plans. We're thinking about do-it-yourself. Yeah, that's awesome. We're thinking about community gardens. A lot of people are familiar with community gardens, not-for-profit collection, and worker cooperative collective. Isn't that deep? Under our exchange transfer, excuse me, my sinuses. Under exchange transfer, we have points here that allude to gifts, bartering club, community, community connections, fair trade, time banks, free stores, purchasing agreement, slide and case pricing. And slide and case pricing may vary because, depends on what people are willing to pay for a commodity, different pricing of product or serve based on the consumer ability to pay. On the consumption, what comes up? Consumer cooperative, housing and cooperative, ethical purchasing, collective ownership of land, which is very vital, community land trusts, and collective housing. And lastly, on this slide, we deal with surplus allocation, and it brings highlight to areas of credit unions, cooperative loan funds, cooperative banks, composting, like Rebecca mentioned earlier on, and recycling, which is very vital because we have to take care of the earth and we have to work together in solidarity. That's where it ties my tail up with everything that we do, because each step we take or make impacts ourselves and the generation to come. Community development, credit unions, rotating savings and credit association, and community financing. And collectively, the common grounds here are community, education, energy, shelter, health, culture, food, and water. I mean, what a great way to sum up everything. Next slide. Yeah, so here are 4 different types of cooperative. So we have the worker-owned cooperative or the worker owner. We have the producer-owned cooperative, the consumer-owned cooperative, and the multi-stake owner. So that the multi-stake, as you can see, incorporates all 3 aspects: worker, producer, and consumer. Next slide. Yeah, so there's some aspect in terms of legal structure of cooperative corporation. Oh, so much see. So we have legal cooperation types in many, but not in all states. They exist in New York, but can be restricted in membership. Example, Cooperative Home Care Associates. Then we have marketing and referral cooperative. It's more flexible. It operates more as a secondary cooperative, training, marketing for individuals, etc. Not designed to earn and distribute profit, and may form a nonprofit corporation under state's general cooperative corporation law. Example, CC 480 and Golden Step. And lastly, LLC cooperative, that's my corp. Most flexible business form, all workers are partners and can share profit. 1 worker, 1 vote laid out in the operating agreement. An example is Hopewell, hi Hopewell, and Brightly Cooperative. Next slide. All right, so here's a beautiful logo, Hopewell Care Childcare Cooperative. I'll give you a little overview of Hopewell Care's work and history, and the benefit of being a worker owner member, and how we use a contract to set standard as it connects again to May Day and Labor Day and the working force generally. Next slide. Thank you. Awesome. So I love this picture because it brings us sort of a roundtable effect. You know, there's a lot of discussion and decision making. It was painful at times, but we got through it. And these are some of the members at the startup, you know, having discussion and meetings and everything. And I just want to take this moment to read our mission that is so powerful and meaningful and had a lot of impact in our members, because everybody come together to agree to this. So the mission of Hopewell Care is to provide reliable, trustworthy childcare service through training passionate caretakers. You've got to be passionate about this work. It's not just a job. Our members have the opportunity to learn as part of a team and to work with dignity and self-esteem while bringing respect and love to the community. Isn't this beautiful? Next slide. Yeah, so here I just highlight a little picture of us again, you know, doing our usual thing. We're not going to stay too long in it. And one of the beautiful days when we decide too much office meeting, let's get out there and mix with nature and sit on the grass and do a little picnic meeting. And everyone agrees to that. So that's what we highlighted in this slide. You know, we're people. Next slide. Awesome. So there's some serious aspect to being a part of Hopewell Care. So we believe in training, education, learning. We believe in proper preparation as we go out there to provide service to our community and to our employers. So Cornell University is part of a training program, initiative, organization, university that come together to provide training in terms of child psychology and other aspect of the work that is very relatable to what we do in social and emotional childhood education, nutrition, communication with families, and the list goes on and on. We also ensure that members are CPR certified, CPR first aid, and you have to be able to know child health care, child first aid, sorry, for children, infant, and adults. Did I say that right? For infant, child, and adult. That's it. So this was a session held with most of our co-op members and some other domestic workers that's interested in upward mobility through training. Next slide. Awesome. So here, we are immigrant women. We are immigrant led. Our culture is so dynamic. We are like a melting pot. And then when our food come together, don't worry if it look a little messy. It's so tasty. So just want to highlight some of the beautiful food. These were members cook, it's like a potluck and everybody bring, a little bit of stuff together, and it was so awesome as we make plan to making Hopewell Care what it is today. Next slide. Awesome. So this is an old throwback picture. So this picture came out, I think, in 2016. That was a co-op fair that we attended in City Hall. I think it was City Hall, City Council. Yeah, so we have two council members in the picture. The one to the right, she was very in tune, interested, supportive. It's a pity Brad's not there, because Brad Lander was so awesome to us. And he served our community very well. He listened to us and he did the best he could to support us during that time of building and growing before we ballooned into a butterfly. I love the butterfly effect. So here, I don't recall this council member's name, but it's so respectful of this council member to be a part of our photo and to minimize himself so the shine goes on us. That's what I have to say about this. Next slide. Awesome. So in the serious aspect of this work, and as much as we love what we do, there are certain injustices that workers go through because we are domestic workers. We work in the homes of family, and sometimes it's difficult facing different situations where we have to learn how to deal with it and learn what it is that's relevant to all or dominant in most situations so we can create a better working condition. So there were subjects that came up around dignity for domestic workers. Some domestic workers are being discriminated against. Some people are not able to take vacation when they want to. And the workers should be able to take their vacation as they see it fit and not feel like they're demanded to do it when they're told to do it. So there was just, issues around that. And the sweet part, we are sharing Skittles. So we're having a nice sweet time while we go through these instances. So it's all good. Next slide. Yeah, so I didn't mention on the slide before, but this picture here is a photo of that was taken during one of the National Domestic Workers Bill of Rights. And National Domestic Workers Alliance is one of the allies, and they support workers' need to help build dignity for all workers and to help educate, inform, and taking it forward to help us pass laws and put workers in a position where they'll be accepted, respected, and honored in the right way they should. Next slide. Yes, so here we have hand in hand, and hand in hand is the domestic employer network. And with this network, they are also an ally for us as domestic workers. They support, I should say, an even middle ground trend where workers and employers come together to talk about the issue or to make working condition better, because some employers are not aware, while some people just do things the way they normally do it. You know, you just hear you do this and you do that too. But in this setting, um, employers can learn more about what workers need and how they can better foster or encourage better working condition, because this job is a human connected jobs. Children are not furnitures, they're human beings. They need to be loved, nurtured, cared for, and it takes a lot of mental capacity. It takes good working condition in order to have a beautiful day while taking care of children and all of the processes they go through in the day. So this is Namrata and her employer on a street fair at right in front of her office, Carroll Gardens Association. That's on Columbia Street. Next slide. All right, so here again is another picture of a street fair, and this is Hopewell tent or booth. And we have two of our members here, Elsa and Claudia. And we move to the next slide. Yeah, again, we always appreciate our nannies. Sometimes we do hand paintings. It depends on what comes up. So there is Namrata in the park giving out, excuse, there's a little noise in the background. Yeah, giving out, you know, appreciation tokens to nanny, which really feels good on a hot day while you're outside supervising children and looking at them play and learn as they develop and grow. Next slide. Yeah, and this year is so deep and awesome. So here is the signing of Intro 339 by then Mayor Bill de Blasio. So this sort of highlights some of the things we do. And the Human Right Protection Law was actually passed in July 2021, and it's effective as of March 12, 2022. So we have some of our allies. Remember, I see Ben in the photo, and there's many other, Ben is on the call too. Hi, Ben. And there are many other nannies and housekeepers and house cleaners that witnessed the signing of that very important bill. Next slide. Oh yeah, and one thing I didn't mention, the New York City Coalition is also in support to make all of these that we discuss possible. There's also another coalition that we support, movement, I should say, in care work, and it's called Care Forward. It's similar to what I said about hand in hand, but here we have both employers and nannies coming together to decide a way forward to make it better. So that, you know, you don't want to be you doing this and the employer doing something else. So you want to have that collective unity and understanding. And, you know, everybody should be able to have certain standards and values as you move forward to making this work better for all and for the community and for the employers too, because there's a lot of wonderful employers out there. And we thank you all for partaking in such wonderful movement. Next slide. Yeah, so we'll get into what is Advocacy Council and who we are and the campaign we support. Next slide. So here is the worker cooperative, we organize for justice generally. The name of the organization is New York City Network of Worker Cooperative. That's what the NYCNOWC stand for. It sounds very strange, but it's very meaningful. And that was a photo taken on our Advocacy Council and Policy platform. I believe that was a CUNY law, maybe about 3-4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah, so one of the campaign we support here is the Public Bank NYC. And that's me in the middle there, looking a little different. So we were at Wall Street talking about Public Bank and how Public Bank could be very vital in changing the way Wall Street banks operate so it can better serve the community in many different ways. There was a lot of other coalition members there. Southwest Brooklyn Tenant Union was in the house, and many valuable speakers and council member also was present. Some of them talked before and had to leave. You know, their timing is very limited sometimes, but we're always happy to have them listen and speak to us and hear us so they can advocate for change and they can write bills into law because it's part of the advocacy process. We will bring issues to these council members. They will have to sign in. Sometimes there's a bill that's created. And we're not going to get into all the aspects, but workers also learned how a bill comes into law, what process it goes through when it sits in committees, and you have to move it from one committee to the next and move it to the floor in order for it to be passed. How, when the governor have to sign it, etc., etc., etc. Next slide. Yeah, so finally, some of the other campaigns that we support and coalition is Housing Justice for All. We support the Marijuana Working Group, and there's a lot of interest of having marijuana co-ops. And that's because of the Marijuana Legislation and Taxation Act. And we also support fund excluded workers, coverage for all. And coverage for all is like a health plan to cover all working groups, no matter the, what should I say, the inequalities or the limitation, because everybody go out there and work in the sun, in the rain. There are a lot of hardworking people that don't have health coverage. And only this year, 8,000 people died, not because of COVID, but because they didn't have health coverage. So this is a very human thing that should be available to all. And we also support the movement for racial and immigrant justice. We support USB NYC, which is United for Small Business, New York City, and Education and Technical Assistance, direct financing, to name a few. Next slide. Awesome, and we're on time. So now we're going to turn to question plus answers plus comment. But before we do that, I'll pass it over to Rebecca.
Oh, thank you, Gail. Thank you so much.